to the What If It's Not Depression Vodcast. I'm your host, Dr. Achina Stein. I'm interviewing someone today about migraines. That's Dr. Amelia Scott Barrett, and she is a Stanford-trained neurologist who teaches the latest brain health science to people with headaches. This curated information empowers individuals with the most effective tools to change their lives by tapping into the brain's natural capacity to heal. She and her team coach people to health through an online course called Migraine Relief Code, and you'll get more information at the end about this if you're interested. She's founded Rocky Mountain Neurology, where she continues to see patients with headaches. Welcome, Dr. Barrett. And if you like this episode, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And at the end, if you're interested in doing a deep dive in migraines, consider her online course, or consider doing a deep dive about the root causes of depression and enrolling in my course called What If It's Not Depression Boot Camp. And it's starting soon. Dr. Barrett, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah. So tell me, you have been a neurologist for how many years now?
Oh gosh, over 20. Yeah,
I think we kind of graduated around the same time, or did our training around the same time. Maybe you're a little bit younger than me. So so you've been traveling a bit, and you settled in Colorado. And I know that you've probably been doing conventional medicine for a period of time, but you shifted gears in search of other methods. What was going on that you decided to move or pivot away from conventional medicine?
Well, to be honest, it's because I had the experience of realizing that I had done everything medications could do for my patients, but they still weren't better. And I had discovered some things managing my own migraines that I knew would help them. But it's just not possible to deliver those things in, the 15 or 20 minutes that insurance gives us to see people. So that is really what sparked me to develop this whole work, is just knowing that I could help people more with different tools and wanting to be able to do that.
Okay, great. Yeah. So can you talk about what tools you were using before and what tools you've been since using when you made that shift?
Sure. So a lot of this came from my own experience with migraines. So in my 20s, I had headaches, weeks and months at a time, often associated with neck pain and stress and hormones and other things going on in my life. And when I was about 30, I discovered yoga, which honestly, the first benefit I had from it was that it helped me with anxiety. I had just had a child and I had never experienced anxiety until that point in my life. Honestly, med school didn't faze me, but having a kid, I was like, oh, wow, that was a whole new thing. So yoga helped me a lot through that. People had recommended that I try it for the anxiety, and I did find some benefit. And then to my surprise, I started noticing that my headaches were a lot better too. And, I had been trained very, very much in the conventional medicine tradition at a place like Stanford. That's what it's all about, right? So I had always approached my patients and myself with those tools, which is primarily medications for acute treatment, medications for prevention. And while those things did help, they never relieved the underlying problem. And so when I had this experience in my own life of finding that yoga relieved my headaches, I started getting very curious about what was going on there and what other tools I could bring to people to help relieve headaches. It was sort of my eye opener that there is more that helps people get better than pills.
Right.
So yeah.
So you mentioned a couple things, and one of the things that occurs to me is that I don't know if people realize that there's a difference between tension headaches, or what people call regular headaches, tension headaches, and migraine headaches. and that there's multiple root causes for each of those types. And so yoga absolutely does a number of things. It relieves the tension in your muscles, right? And you become more aware of that tension as you're doing yoga. You become more body aware, but it hits the parasympathetic system. It supports the parasympathetic system. And so if you have a hormonal change that is resulting in headaches, then and anxiety and or depression from having a baby, yoga actually rebalances your hormones. So there's multiple root causes right there that yoga can hit all in one. It's a kill two birds with one stone right there. Yeah. So
absolutely. And there's tremendous data. There are hundreds and hundreds of different studies showing how yoga and or meditation can improve a variety of medical conditions.
Right. Yeah. So what else did you notice besides yoga that has helped you or your patients?
Yeah. So I turned to the literature and started looking for other ways to help the brain heal, because I sort of felt like that is a neglected area of conventional medicine. And I thought, well, and when I fall down and skin my knee heals. Maybe my brain can heal too. Is that a thing? Does that really even work? And of course, started learning all the ways that the brain really does heal itself. And a lot of this stuff, honestly, this is new information. These are insights that we have been able to have based on things like functional MRI studies, which have only come around in the past, decade or so. So we are very much still learning how it is that the brain heals itself, but there are several different pathways that happens. And then, of course, once that becomes clear, then you start thinking, all right, how do I translate this science into hands-on actionable items that people can implement in their own lives to help their brain heal?
Right. Yeah, one of the things that's been new in the last decade is the concept of neuroplasticity. There was a time where we believed that whatever cells that you had in your brain, that it had a limited lifetime, and then at some point you start just losing brain cells. And there was this idea that you couldn't regenerate, but now we know that you can have a regeneration of to some extent of brain cells, right?
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that is one of the core principles of how the brain heals, is understanding that we actually can heal the brain in two different ways. Number one, we have these neurons in our brain, which are the brain cells, and they're all linked to each other by a complex web of processes, axons, dendrites. And what we have learned is that one of the ways we heal is through sprouting new connections between existing neurons. Now, that information has been around a little longer, but what was really a game changer here is understanding that new neurons themselves can be grown. Literally, when I started off my career as a neurologist, we thought that was not the case. And in that, short span of time, we have come to understand it actually is possible to do things, to make choices that result in the growth of literally new neurons in your brain, which I just find to be so empowering.
Right. Absolutely. And the other thing that's been new in our knowledge base is about microglia, right? Can you talk about that?
Well, the microglia are the support cells around the neurons. And I'm guessing you're bringing this up because of its implications for detox.
Right.
Is that what you're thinking? Yeah. So there are a couple of ways that this happens. Probably, I'm going to say 5 or 10 years ago, we discovered a system in the brain called the glymphatic system. And what happens with this part of the system is that it helps your brain essentially clear toxins out. Now, we did not know that the brain essentially has its own trash truck.
Right. House cleaners that come through. Right.
Yes, exactly. We did not know that existed until the glymphatic system was discovered. And it does rely on the transport of these chemicals through the microglia. So if you imagine, it's almost like washing out the brain. The clean fluid comes in along the outside of the arteries. The arteries are all the clean, fresh blood that's pumped by the heart up to the brain. The fluid actually travels along the outside of the arteries, washes through the microglia and other structures of the brain, cleansing as it goes, and then it drains out along the outside of the veins. So it wasn't until we had very specialized equipment that we could see the movement of that fluid to confirm, aha, this is how the brain eliminates wastes. And I think that there are some important things for migraine sufferers in particular. First of all, when you have a migraine, it shuts off the glymphatics. So this is a particularly important and under-recognized topic for people with migraines, because there's not a lot of information out there about how to help your brain detox, how to improve the function of the glymphatics, which are two somewhat separate but related issues, but massively under-recognized. And it's an area where when people start to turn their attention towards that, they can experience huge, huge, huge improvements, not only in migraines, but in brain fog, in, depression, which of course, as you know, travels along with migraine, and anxiety as well.
Right. So this particular system, my understanding is that it happens only during a certain time of the day, or night, I should say, that it happens during sleep. And it's important to be sleeping. And having a good sleep schedule in order to almost turn on the system. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that true?
Oh, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. So it is functioning during the day at low levels. It goes into overdrive at night while we're sleeping. And here's a key thing also that's impacting people with headaches. An awful lot of people with headaches have trouble sleeping. They know it's important. They just can't. They lie awake with their mind spinning, or they wake up at 3 a.m, again with their mind spinning. They can't go back to sleep. And so many of these people tell these symptoms to their conventional doctor. And what do they get? They get a prescription for sleeping pills. And unfortunately, what we have discovered is that most of those pills actually end up suppressing the function of the glymphatic system. And here's why. They alter the normal electrical firing of your brain at night. Your brain goes through very separate stages, stage 1, stage 2, REM sleep, non-REM, slow wave. You've all heard of this. There are specific patterns of electrical firing that are associated with each of those stages of sleep. And unfortunately, prescription sleeping pills often suppress that electrical firing. And what happens is that shuts off your glymphatics, and it makes it that much harder to heal. So this is a particularly important area for people with any kind of chronic headaches, whether it's migraine or otherwise, to be aware of, so that we can really get around this problem and help your brain start cleaning itself from the inside out so that you heal.
Right. Yeah. So I'm curious, people have ideas about what sleeping pills are, but there's different classes of medications that are used as sleeping pills. So there's this benzodiazepines, there's the sedative hypnotics like Ambien, and then there's also certain classes of antidepressants, like the tricyclic antidepressants. Mirtazapine is often used for sleep and depression. So would you say, would you include the antidepressants as also a class of medications that turns off the system?
No, they're better than others. Let's just put it that way. So the hypnotics and the benzodiazepines are definitely the worst offenders, to be avoided at all costs.
Right.
And very difficult to come off of for people. I work with a lot of people on this issue through my online work, to try to help them safely and effectively come off of those medications so that their brain can start learning how to heal. But I'm telling you, it is a hard process.
It is. It's very, very hard. And I just want the audience to know, as they're listening, and sometimes people, when they listen to shows like mine, they hear a piece of information. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to stop that medication. Just so you know, benzodiazepines should always be tapered. You should never just stop that medication. It should be tapered under the direction of a physician or other medical health professional, because you can actually go into serious withdrawal and even seizures if you just stop a medication like that. So it's important that if you're going to choose to come off that medication, to do it safely and taper it. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's, I agree 100%. Yeah. So I view it as a spectrum with those types of medications at one end, unmedicated healthy sleep at the other end, with medications like tricyclics or antihistamines or muscle relaxants as sort of being in the middle.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah. No, it's good to review these kinds of things because, people are taking all sorts of different classes of medications to help them with sleep. And they might be informed that it's a sleeping medication when it actually is not. So it's important to be clear about that. So if you look at your medications, often what's used for sleep, and people aren't told that it's for depression, is trazodone or mirtazapine or amitriptyline. And I know a lot of neurologists like to use amitriptyline, particularly for treatment of migraines, and it is also double duty in terms of depression or even anxiety too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what one of my favorite studies is about amitriptyline? There was actually a randomized controlled trial, which is like our gold standard type of scientific research, right? So there was an RCT comparing 25 milligrams of amitriptyline to 3 milligrams of melatonin in patients who had chronic headaches. And guess what? The melatonin worked just as well. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. That's really great news. Yeah.
And it was a well done study. So I love making people aware of that kind of research because, anybody can go to the store and buy melatonin. It's safe. It's not going to impact, the electrical activity of your brain during sleep. So, it is a good choice for people who are in this difficult situation of having to figure out how to get their sleep cycles more regulated, because it takes a while to train your body's own circadian rhythm to help you sleep at night and be awake during the day. That can be a big adjustment.
Right. And the melatonin, there's some studies that show that melatonin is helpful for anti-aging. Right?
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an anti-aging supplement too. So
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us more about what other tools you have that help people to heal from their migraines.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are really 4 stages of this process, and I like to call it rebooting your brain. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the first step is to reveal with labs to figure out where you're at with brain health, gut health, inflammation, hormones, stress markers. I think it's important to have accurate information about where your body's at. Mm-hmm. Second, I think we need to revitalize with brain specific supplements and food. And then next is to remove toxins. We touched on this a little bit with sleep, but also ramping up our body's own natural detox pathways. Many people with migraine have deficiencies in one particular gene that's involved in the detox pathway, the GST gene. It helps us eliminate toxins from our body. So again, an under recognized area where a lot of people with migraine need help. And then I think the last important area is rewiring our nervous system, because the experience of living with daily or near daily headaches, really chronic pain of any type, puts us into this chronic fight or flight state. And we have to intentionally shift our nervous system to a calmer place. We have learned how to do this from functional MRI studies of the brain. We know what's effective. And so there are several different strategies we can use to help rewire our nervous system and help us heal. Great.
Can we do a deeper dive? I don't think we'll have time to do all four stages, but maybe the last two stages, since most people that at least know me and have listened to other episodes know about the first two stages a lot more than the last two stages. That would be great. Then you mentioned the GST system. That would be great to talk more about as well.
Oh, sure. Happy to. So GST is glutathione transferase. And what it does is it combines a chemical in your liver called glutathione with a toxin. Okay. So you need this GST gene to link the glutathione and the toxin together so that your body can eliminate them through your GI tract. And what we have learned from lots of genetic studies is that many people with migraines have mutations in that GST gene. So it's important to learn strategies for ramping up that system, which can be, there are a lot of different ways that your body detoxes with this system, but essentially it involves supporting glutathione synthesis, supporting combining the glutathione with toxins and reducing toxins wherever we can, and improving elimination of that from the body.
Right.
So that's a different detox system. That's a body-wide detox system as compared to the glymphatic system, which is brain specific, but you really need to work on both to help your brain heal maximally. And I think this is another area where conventional neurology sometimes falls short, is we forget the fact that the brain actually lives inside your body, and we can't just focus on the detox pathways in the brain. We have to detox the body as a whole.
Right. Yes, I've been saying that over and over and over.
Right.
The head is attached to the body, and everything that goes to the body goes to the brain. To me, the brain is like the canary in the coal mine.
So good one.
Right?
Yeah.
If people aren't familiar with that, when in the old days, when coal miners would go down into the mines, they would take a canary in a little cage, and they found that if the canary passes out or dies, there's always someone keeping an eye on that canary, that they know that there's toxins or lack of oxygen occurring, and that they have only a certain number of minutes to get out of that cave or that mine and save themselves. Otherwise, they'll all die as well. So to me, the brain is like the canary in the coal mine of the body. And it's important to really pay attention to those symptoms and understand that if it's happening in the brain, it's happening in the rest of your body as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. I love that analogy. And then the last area is really this idea of shifting the nervous system, which I think is also underappreciated. I can't tell you how many times I've had people, let me say this. I think it gets oversimplified sometimes. I think the message people get is, you're stressed out, that's what's causing your headaches. And the number one reply I hear is, it's no different than it ever was. Why are my headaches so much worse now if it's been this way for years? But that's the problem right there, that it has been that way for years, and your nervous system has become shifted to this chronic fight or flight state. It's not only because of stressful things in your lives, it's because having headaches all the time is hard on your body, right? It's both factors. And I think people underestimate the impact of having to fight to get through your day every day. People underestimate how hard that is on your body and how easy it is to land in this chronic fight or flight state. So we teach people multiple different ways to shift the nervous system. And you really have to make a conscious intervention here. Your neural pathways are basically the result of everything that has happened to you so far. It's like an Etch-a-Sketch, it just keeps accumulating until you move the little lever and wipe it clean. We teach you how to wipe it clean, because you have to make a conscious intervention to shift your body from this state back to the healthy place it belongs. And then when you do that, all these other healing mechanisms in your body start to turn on. So there are a lot of different ways to do that. And I think it's very individualized, what works for different people. So just for example, something we've already talked about a little bit, yoga can be one of those tools, a very calm, restorative type of yoga, a work in, not a work out type of yoga, right? Can help you with that.
I like the way you say that, work in type. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, great. Yeah. Can you talk about another tool that exemplifies this shifting of the nervous system?
Absolutely. So there are decades of research on biofeedback as a tool. But I think it's a difficult tool to access. You have to go to a place and have somebody teach you. And for most people, that's only realistic maybe once a week, maybe more times a week, but you're not going to sustain that for long periods of time. And what we know about neuroplasticity is that repetition is what matters. Repetition, repetition, repetition. 10 minutes a day gets you a lot farther than 70 minutes on the weekend, right? So biofeedback has not been widely implemented as a tool, I think, because of these logistical barriers. However, I am working with the developers of an app called Juva for migraine, Juva. Please go find it, everybody, if you're curious. It's an amazing app that they've put together. Anyway, it helps you learn the techniques of biofeedback in your home. It's this fascinating biohacking technology where you can just put your finger on the camera of your cell phone and it can read your data. And the advantage of this is that you can learn what's having an impact, what is really lowering your heart rate, what is really making an impact in your body. So I love that tool as well. And how some of this new technology is really allowing us to bring it to people, even in their homes without having to go anywhere. And you get that feedback. So you know if what you're doing is working or not to produce the intended physiological effect.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm looking forward to finding and downloading that tool. That's great.
It is such cool technology. We live in such an amazing era in human history. We really do.
Yeah. So is that tool free or is it something you have to pay for?
You know, I am not sure where they're at in their development stages. I believe that I'm sure the intention is to make money off of it. Somehow, I'm not sure how they're doing it, honestly. I'm not involved in that piece of it. I'm really involved more in
you just like the technology.
Kind of sciencey part. Yeah.
No problem. I don't expect you to. I was just curious. So it's always nice to be able to give people tools, and I like to let people know up front whether or not it's something that is free to download or they have to pay for a fee or of some sort or membership. So So what else would you say? We touched a little bit about how migraines and depression travel together. Can you talk more about why that is the case?
Well, first of all, it has to do with overlapping circuitry in the brain. Right. Yeah. So
hardware and software, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, a lot of the, it's partly neuronal pathways, you know, the structures in the brain that are involved in making both of these symptoms that people experience. It's partly the neurotransmitters that are involved in these symptoms that produce a similar experience. And I think that this is also one of those two-way street situations, right? If you are having a lot of headaches and they are really impacting your life and you can't do the things that matter most to you, of course, there are going to be feelings of sadness and loss in that, which kind of it's almost, you know, it sort of spirals the situation. You have a darn good reason to be depressed, right? So that it can happen that way. The other way it can happen is, of course, you know, people who are experiencing symptoms of depression for whatever cause in their body or in their mind. One of the ways that depression can literally manifest is through somatic symptoms, somatic meaning body-based symptoms. And so for sometimes it will happen for people that there's a little bit of a lack of awareness or insight about what's happening with the depression, and their body will start manifesting these headaches almost as a wake up, as a, hey, something's going on here. Pay attention to me.
Right.
And so we can see it happen that way as well. So I think we see both patterns because these problems can impact each other. Absolutely. And also because of the overlapping circuitry in the brain.
Yes. And you make a really good point. I don't think most people realize that it could be a somatic response to whatever the person's experiencing emotionally. Many people might consider muscle tension or butterflies in their stomach, really butterflies in your stomach more for anxiety as opposed to depression, but that you can have these somatic responses to the depression or other emotions. And it is a matter of sort of connecting the dots and becoming more aware that is what's happening. And it's looking for patterns, really, change in mood, oh, headache, change in mood, oh, headache, right? And then really understanding that if you can address the mood, and that could be really through mechanisms like breathing or meditating, and improving that awareness and disconnecting that response, that will help with the headaches as well as your mood. So it does, again, kills two birds with one stone, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I could not agree more.
Great. So do you have any tips for our listeners about what's one thing that they could do today that would improve their migraine headaches if they were having them?
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to say this because I just want everybody to know this. So I think that the world of supplements and migraine can be confusing because there's so many different recommendations out there. So I just want to simplify the research for everybody with one word: magnesium. There is no better supplement that you can take for your migraines than magnesium. So, and one important thing to know about this is that there are many different forms of magnesium. So that second word, magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide, magnesium glycinate, whatever it is, that second word matters a lot.
It does.
And yeah. And for migraine, my top recommendation is to start with magnesium glycinate. And you need a dose of somewhere between 400 and 500 milligrams in order for your brain stores to start coming up. And I generally recommend taking this at night before bed because magnesium essentially gives you more of one of the main kind of downers in your brain. There's different chemicals in your brain. I think of them as uppers or downers, excitatory neurotransmitters or inhibitory neurotransmitters. And so magnesium is literally having the effect in your brain of increasing GABA. So it does help calm you down. It does not feel like a hypnotic or anything like that, but it definitely helps you calm down. So I recommend that at night.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. I use all different types of magnesium. I like combinations of different magnesiums for different reasons, but magnesium glycinate is also really, really good for anxiety. And
fantastic.
Yes. And it helps a lot with sleep. So to me, that's like one of the number one supplements that I start people on. Do you have an opinion about the chelated version of magnesium biglycinate versus just regular magnesium glycinate?
I think that's an option too. Certainly. What's your experience been with that?
To me, I see no significant difference. So I just was curious if you had any experience whether it should be chelated or not chelated. So I've read different things, but my personal experience with my patients that there's really not a significant difference in taking either version. Yeah.
I agree. I don't see a huge difference. I think in my world, a question that comes up a lot is whether or not to use magnesium threonate, because of course this was designed to cross the blood-brain barrier better. It also costs twice as much usually. So I feel like if people can get some benefit on the glycinate, that's always the place to start. Right. But there are certainly other forms, as you mentioned, the threonate combination magnesiums, but I view most of those as a second tier, but certainly options for people who aren't doing well on the first one we try. Yeah.
Right. So just so the audience knows, because I don't want everyone running out and taking magnesium, you want to make sure that you have good kidney function or renal function. It's pretty safe across the board for most conditions, with the exception of if you have kidney issues. And your body, you can taper up, and your body is really good at causing diarrhea to remove it. So if you get diarrhea from magnesium, then you know to back off on that. So you have a good way to sort of have a check system in place just by, loose stools. And so just back off on the amount of magnesium, but you can't do that if you have problems with your kidneys. Okay. So keep that in mind. So I think it's time to end. I know you probably have other things scheduled and run over in our time. So I really appreciate everything that you have offered. You've given a lot of information. I don't know if there's any last minute things you want to say before we end.
Sure. Just one more thing. I think if any of you who are listening are curious about this approach of using brain health to reduce headaches or migraines, you can get more information at migraineclass.com. That is just a video that kind of goes into the science behind this and how you can really implement these tools into your life.
Oh, thank you so much. That'll be in the show notes. And and how to contact Dr. Barrett will be in the show notes. And again, I thank you so much. And if anybody is listening to this, if you are interested in also doing a deeper dive in the root causes of depression, feel free to contact me about the next boot camp. Thank you so much for joining us.